This is JS Party, your weekly celebration of JavaScript and the web. Connect with us on the socials. We're on Twitter at JSPartyFM and Mastodon at JSParty at changelog.social. Thank you to our friends at Fastly. JS Party ships fast globally because Fastly is fast globally. It's as simple as that. Check them out at fastly.com. And to fly.io. Deploy your app servers and database close to your users. No ops required. Learn more at fly.io. Oh, and don't forget to take that front-end feud survey. jsparty.fm/ff. Okay, it's party time, y'all. Y'all, you know what time it is. It is JS Party time. I'm Jerod, your internet friend, and I am joined today by Bone Skull. What's up, Chris?
What's up, Jerod?
Are you excited to go through some survey results?
Yeah, I totally love this survey every year.
Are you excited to play HeadLIES?
No. You still haven't explained to me what that is. And
that's part of the fun. I also have K-Ball with me. What's up, K-Ball?
Hello, hello. I'm excited to play HeadLIES and watch Bone Skull's head explode.
This will be fun. So, K-Ball, you played this alone, and Nick played it alone. And then Nick played it with Amel and Amelia. Who won that round, Nick? Was it me?
Probably, of course.
Yeah, I think I won that round.
Am I the only one who's ever beaten you, Jerod?
I'm pretty sure I won. I can't remember exactly how it went down, but if I recall correctly, I did end up pulling that one out as well. We'll see who wins this time around. It's going to be me. But first, we will talk to Nick. Have I introed you, Nick? Hello. Ahoy.
Ahoy, hoy. How's it going?
Going good. How's it going with you?
I'm very excited to be here and to get to our topics like what's a testing framework and what's not. I'm so excited for that.
Yes, we will have the epic debate. Chris does have opinions on what is and what is not a testing framework. What is Selenium and why is it a testing framework?
Show title.
Survey results, 2022 State of JS. It's out. It's done. It's in the bag. Congrats to Sasha and the whole team. This is an epic effort each year. Lots of adjustments. They built out a lot of software to run this thing. I thought it was pretty cool. They say in the opener that this year they received almost 40,000 responses, which is about double of last year's amount. So we're starting to hit, I hope at a certain point, critical mass. They've been working on getting more people from more places and more areas and more identities and stuff into this mix. We can talk about that as well.
I don't know. I was looking at the demographic breakdown. Still looks pretty unbalanced, but
at a certain point, though, doesn't it also represent the industry that it's in, which is also unbalanced?
If it's as unbalanced as the survey results, I'm depressed.
Okay. We might just be depressed here for a few years as we continue to work on it. The question is, was it better than last year? And the answer to that is, I don't know, because I didn't look at last year's. Maybe you can dig that up and we can get some results there. But let's dig into it anyways and start with the most important category, which is favorite JavaScript podcasts, which is the one that everybody skips to immediately and answers, I think. Or is it just me? And unfortunately, those blasted syntax guys got us again. What's up with that, Nick? What can we do? How can we fix this bug?
I think it'll fix itself. We're now an award-winning podcast, so
This is true.
I think we're in the running, and based on we're in second place. They're ahead by double.
They've doubled us up. We did get way more votes than last year, but again, twice as many participants. So it seems like we just scaled alongside the results. But I don't know.
Where in this page do I see podcasts?
It's in the resources section.
Oh, of course.
Right underneath
all right,
video creators or something like this. And you'll see we have syntax with 3,359 votes, JS Party with 1,546, HTTP 203 coming in at number 3, and then the changelog followed by JavaScript Jabber. So
I think that's impressive.
Pretty similar to what it has been.
I think it's impressive for the changelog too, for not being a dedicated JS podcast to be so high.
Right.
It's awesome.
We're slowly creeping up on syntax.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at last year versus this year. Last year, they had 2.5 times as many votes as we did. This year, it's closer to 2 times.
Yes.
Keep projecting that out, and like 2030, we're passing them.
On an infinite timeline, we are going to be the number one podcast on this survey, darn it. And then we can all die happy and old. All right, we kid a little bit. It's definitely not the most important part. It's just the most important for us as we navel gaze. Let's get into some of the actually interesting bits. Nick, what did you find interesting out of the survey results?
Well, if you go to the frameworks one, I immediately kind of jumped to the frameworks, and I like seeing that graph of like where things are landing. And I kind of thought that it was interesting. If you like look at the front end frameworks ratios over time, React was not number one last year. It actually was overtaken by Svelte. This year, it's been overtaken by Quick, Svelte, and Solid, which are all ahead of React in retention and interest too. But if you actually look at usage, React is wildly popular in terms of people are still using it and haven't quite switched over to these other frameworks. So I think it's important to like see, take where things are headed and where things are actually headed and kind of compare them. But it's very interesting.
I mean, interest, it says want to learn, divide by want to learn and not interested. How many people haven't learned React yet?
That's true.
Like it's going to lose on interest just because everybody already knows it.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's becoming old, boring, but established and dominant. It's kind of par for the course, right?
It's not losing market share.
It's also not losing awareness.
It does seem like there's a heating up of the framework wars again, where it was like React kind of sucked all the air out of the room for maybe a few years there. And now there's interesting things abounding. K-Ball, I know you're interested in Quick. We had Mishko Hevery on the show last year, and he's coming up again. You're going to go deeper, a deeper dive into Quick, I think next week or the following. So that'll be exciting.
Next week.
Yeah, I think that that's great. This kind of healthy competitiveness between the frameworks, like they're all pushing each other forward, which is exactly what you want. You don't want things to stagnate. And there's a lot of good ideas across all of these frameworks, and they do things a little bit differently. And there's a flavor that suits you probably. If not, there will be next year when you read it. But there's a lot of cool ideas and nobody is sitting still, which is great.
Well, and one of the things I talked with Chris Ferdinandi about last week, I think, and that is showing up a little bit in this, but it'll be interesting to see how it plays out over the next couple of years, is more and more adopting of these frameworks that try to pre-compile away a large amount and sort of ship a minimal runtime, ship smaller amounts of JavaScript. There's more sensitivity about how much JS is going over the wire.
Agreed. Chris, are you finding any interesting data points, any tidbits, any analyses that you can provide?
So I was looking at this, the percentages tab, and then I clicked the rankings tab, and that's easier for me to read. But if I look at usage, you have to remember that it's not like, okay, which maybe you're in a job where you're using 2, maybe even 3, but the numbers don't add up to 100. So the usage is, okay, like 82% of developers use React, or is it they've used React before?
Right.
And right now they're using something else. And so, you can say, yes, I've used multiple of these frameworks. And so it's kind of hard to get a good picture from this, I think, like, what do people use today at their job? So I think that's, I don't know, I wish there was a good way to kind of surface that. But
Right, versus I have used.
Yeah, to like distinguish using at work, using for a hobby. I mean, I think the retention might have to do with like, are they still using it or not? But the context of where are they using it isn't there.
Right. And is it the only one you're using, right? So, yeah, it's just a little bit difficult for me to look at this and try to figure out, well, what does this really mean?
Right.
Yeah.
I don't really know.
Another interesting tidbit with surveys in general is like survey fatigue. So one thing that was interesting to see, they have actually completion percentages. As a completionist, I respected that like 90% of people got to the end, or what was the number? No, that's not right. It was like 73% of people made it 90% of the way through, which is less impressive, but I think more accurate than what I said the first time. But pretty good. But what I notice with myself is with surveys, it's like I start off all gung-ho and I'm like, I'm going to answer all these. And then eventually I either stop taking it or the little demon inside me comes out. I'm like, I'm going to start just hitting C for everything, like we used to do in school back in the day. There's a lot of people out there that just want to see the world burn. And I think at 40,000, you're pretty safe that like those people are fringed out and don't really matter. But I know as a person who goes through all of our front end feud surveys, there's always a few that answer every question incorrectly on purpose. So there's so many little things around the edges of surveys, such as that distinction you pointed out, Chris, which is a really big one when you think about it, is like, how do I interpret this question and answer it? On top of that, the people who are just trolling and lying. On top of that, the demographic problems. It's fun and interesting, but there's so many problems with them that what can we really, like, K-Ball, when you look at these, I know you enjoy the analysis and the dissecting, but like, do they affect your life? Do they help you make decisions? Do they help you what?
Good question. I use something like this often as just like a hint at, are there new things I should be checking out? Like looking at this, for example, front-end frameworks, I notice a new addition, Stencil. I've never heard of Stencil. I'm going to go look that up. I don't know what it is or what it's doing, but maybe we should dig into it. Maybe we should have a show about it. Also look at this sometimes as a way to check my expectations a little bit or like give myself a little bit of feedback. If you go to other tools and you look at libraries, the third most regularly used library by respondents of this survey is still jQuery.
Woohoo!
And we tend to get kind of in this world of, okay, everybody's React and everybody's doing this and all of this and very like front focus. And React is old news at this point, right? Well, you know what's older news? jQuery is older news. And it's still the third most popular library listed here. So it's easy to be looking too far in the future, to be constantly thinking about what's changing, what's new. And sometimes I use this to sort of check my reality and say, you know what? You can still build a lot of stuff, and a lot of people are building a lot of stuff with old, boring tools, and that's fine.
Yeah, absolutely. Same story with like Angular, right? The interest is like towards the bottom, but once you sort by usage, it's second place. It just wildly jumps up.
What would be really cool would be to sort by revenue. I know this is like impossible, but right, like global revenue or like GDP for a JavaScript library or framework. That would be so cool. I think we'd see different results. I think React would probably at this point still be where it is, but I think we see different flips in different places because a lot of them, like Angular, tends to be used more in enterprises, less as hobby horses, and so probably driving more revenue, but less interest, less joy. Ooh, that'd be cool. Global joy produced, right?
Even on the revenue, how would you attribute it? Would it be this company is using this and it's driving it? Because like Google uses Angular for some things, but Google Search is not using Angular. And Google Search drives a tremendous amount of their revenue.
Right. That's the problem is you have to actually specify, you would need breakdowns of inside of each corporation, like which products are driving revenue. I mean, it's like I said, it's a pipe dream. You couldn't get it, but it would be really cool. And actually, now that I said it, I'm way more interested in global joy produced out of a library or framework. Like how cool would that be, especially for the creators?
That would probably be, I don't know. I'm thinking like that'd be more like 11D or Astro.
How do you quantify joy in the first place?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
It'd be the static stuff.
I think you'd have to define joy first. Yeah. That may look very different.
How do you define joy, Chris?
I don't.
Chris doesn't know what we're talking about.
I'm saying you got to define it so I'll understand what the hell you're talking about.
So I'll understand what it is.
You got to Marie Kondo this stuff. Does this framework bring me joy? No. Trash it.
Exactly. So, Chris, which part of the survey brought you joy? I saw there was a note about Selenium. Was this joyful?
No. Okay. Well, first, it's not a JavaScript project. But second, it's not a testing framework either.
What is it?
It's a browser automation framework. That's all it does. If you're quote unquote using Selenium, you're using some other like client code, whether that's written in Python or Java. You're using, God help you if you're trying to use it directly, but you're using some other framework. Maybe that's like WebDriver IO. Maybe that's Water in Ruby or something like that. But Selenium is just a server. It just sits there. It provides a way for you to automate a browser. There's nothing about testing in Selenium. There's no test organization. There's no reporting. There's no assertions. It's just a browser automation framework. And that's a thing that I think, obviously, people still don't really understand. On the one hand, it seems a bit unfair. Like, to lump Selenium in with all these other ones because it doesn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
It's not Cypress. It doesn't have assertions or whatever. It doesn't like work out of the box like that and give you everything you need. So anyway, that's my Selenium rant, but I don't think it belongs in this survey.
Do you think it belongs in your life?
Selenium, I don't use it.
What do you use?
Well, I work on Appium. Appium is basically Selenium for devices, right? So, yeah, I don't use Selenium for anything. But sure, people can and should use Selenium where it's appropriate.
What's the test story in Appium? Like, what do you do? How do you test it?
It's the same story as in Selenium. Appium's not a testing framework. It's a device automation framework. And so if you want to use Appium to test your device, your mobile browser, or your smart TV or whatever, you're probably going to pick up like the one when we want to self-test stuff is we just use Mocha with WebDriver IO, and that seems to work fine. But Appium, it just sits there. It's an Express server, and it talks to devices. But like nobody else is going to look at an Express server and say, oh, that's a testing framework.
I feel like this sort of categorization error happens in a lot of places. I was looking at the build tools category here.
Yeah.
And they have Gulp in there. Now, first off, people are still using Gulp. Yes, people are still using Gulp. In fact,
Wow.
it says 25% of people are still using Gulp. Has dropped off to the bottom, but that's still it. But second, Gulp is not a build tool. Gulp is a task runner. People use it for builds, but like there's a fundamental category error going on here. And I think it comes to that, what are most people encountering this in what context and how are they using it? Most people encounter Selenium when they're writing tests. Most people encounter Gulp when they're dealing with building a front-end project of some sort. So they include it in that category, even if that's not really what it is.
Yeah. Another thing is, this survey is for developers, and the main users of Selenium and Appium are not developers. They're QA engineers. They're automation test engineers. They're estats.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not going to use this survey.
Ooh, I misquoted something about Gulp.
What's up?
I just realized this website is broken. The state of JS, if you select usage and then you click from percentages to rankings, it resets you to retention. Gulp has really low retention, but it's still the second used, 50% used in usage of your build tools. Gulp is behind Webpack as the second most used build tool.
How is it ahead of TSC?
Or Vite.
Of TypeScript?
Because they're new. Like Gulp, I don't throw away any of my old scripts. Do you guys?
Yeah, I throw them away.
Do you? I still run them. I still use them.
Actually, I spent quite a while pulling Gulp out of Appium. It was using Gulp, but no. It's just odd to me that, like, if you go and you look at the most dependent upon, like, dev dependencies, like, number one is, I think it's ESLint, but number two is TypeScript now. And so then why is Gulp higher than TypeScript? And I don't know.
It's the TypeScript CLI. I suspect most people using TypeScript have it packaged up in Webpack, Vite, or Gulp.
So they're not using it directly.
Or they don't think about it. Yeah. I mean, if they were using it directly, they would. But when you think about TypeScript as a build tool, like, we know what it does. But, again, category errors, I don't think it's necessarily it should be there, but it's not like what comes to mind. And maybe a lot of what people answer is what comes to mind. I don't know.
We can get really deep into semantics with that too, because like Vite and other ones, they don't do anything with TypeScript except ignore it. Whereas TSC is actually compiling it and will give you errors and things like that. But then you also have like the language server part of it that is actually probably like it's probably higher than everyone, because if you're using VS Code or have your NeoVim set up, like you're using that LSP.
I need to check out Vite because I also don't do anything with TypeScript but ignore it.
You'll get along?
Not for long, Jerod.
I just ignore it, Nick. That's all I do with it.
What's WMR?
We had a show on it actually with Jason Miller, I believe.
We do so many shows, I can't recall.
That doesn't answer the question, Nick.
That doesn't answer the question. It does tell us that we should know what it is. Yes, I remember because we gave him a bunch of different acronyms that they could use because it didn't have one or something, like their acronym was bad.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it is. It's coming out of the pre-act team, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Tell us more, Nick. Google it real quick.
That's what I'm doing.
Chat GPT. What is WMR?
It's like a almost like a Create React app type of thing, or like a packaged like runtime almost. Not runtime, that's the wrong word, but like a packaged build setup for an application. And yeah, it came out of Preact, but it does work with React and maybe other things too.
I think we are excused because if you look at the percentage of respondents who have never heard of WMR, it's like 95 or something.
Right.
So, yeah.
Can include us in that.
Not me.
Even Nick, who apparently did an episode on it.
I was there. I have no excuses, but I still can't remember what it is. There's lots of things, and some things take hold and other things don't. And I haven't heard WMR, I think, since then. Not to knock on it. It's just a fact.
You want to know something else depressing from this survey?
Okay.
Which sites, courses, etc. do you consult? Number 1, Stack Overflow. Okay, not so bad. Number 2, MDN. Yeah, I'm with you. Number 3, W3 Schools.
SEO.
SEO, man.
Please don't consult with W3 Schools. Oh my gosh.
I've heard they cleaned up their act. I've heard that they are okay now.
I've heard they were trying to.
Yeah.
Yes. I haven't checked.
I haven't checked either. They burnt that bridge long ago.
MDN, like, can we just stop for a second and just say how amazing MDN is, though? Like, it's so
Yeah.
good. I love
It really
it.
is.
MDN is phenomenal. Phenomenal. Why would you use anything else?
Right.
SEO.
You know, I'm happy though that when I started off, everything was Experts Exchange.
Yes.
And I don't see that on here at all.
I think it might have got banned off the internet. It's on the dark web now.
Don't you have to like pay a microtransaction to see the answer or something messed up like that?
Yeah.
On Experts Exchange or on W3?
Yeah.
Oh, man, I don't know.
I remember just going to it and like it would have the exact question that you want to get answered, and then everything was
Right.
blurred out after that.
Yeah, and it's like you have to log in and pay for a subscription or something. I don't know.
All right, we are back for the award-winning podcast to play its potentially award-winning game, HeadLIES. This is a game in which I have scoured the interwebs and I have found headlines. I have also fabricated some HeadLIES. It is your guys' job to figure out which is which. So here's how the game works. I will read a headline, at which point each person has the opportunity to stake a claim. Is that true or false? Is it a real headline or is it a false headline? If you guess right away, you can potentially win 2 points. Or you can wait for more information. I also have the first paragraph from the news stories that I will read. You can hear the first paragraph, which will give you much more information. And you can then decide whether it's true or false. And at which point you score 1 point if you're correct and 0 if you're incorrect. For longtime listeners, you're wondering why I'm not punitive anymore and subtracting points if you get it wrong, because my math skills are terrible. And I got confused last time and it was rather embarrassing. So we're going to go simple, positive scories. We're going to keep it positive today. And we are going to see who's the best at detecting BS.
Speaking of confused, you were asserting that you had won all of our individual HeadLIES headlines episodes before. And so I looked up JS Party episode 220.
Okay.
And can I quote an authoritative source, Mr. Jerod Santo? Final score, Jerod 8, K-Ball 9. It's hard to even utter the words, but you, sir, are the HeadLIES champion.
Oh my.
In the words of the only expert, Jerod Santo, it turns out that Jerod Santo has not won every single game of HeadLIES.
Well, I knew those transcripts would come back to bite me at some point.
Well, Jerod, wait. So if you are running the game and you have the headline, how do you score points?
Okay, so that was one-on-one because K-Ball was the only one on the show, and so it was him versus me, the game runner. I will not be a participant in this game, so it's going to be you guys against each other. I'm just going to run the game, so I'm not going to score any points today.
Okay.
But back then, it was just me versus K-Ball, so I had to make it competitive because I make everything competitive. It's kind of...
That doesn't make any sense, but okay.
So it's like the asterisk on on the wins there for K-Ball.
Yeah, it didn't really count.
He won, but with an asterisk.
Yeah. So, fair enough. Go with it, Chris.
So today will be the day that it really counts?
This is a pretty big deal.
Okay.
All right. Are you guys ready for the first headline?
Nick, you're going down.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
The first headline is Dancers Flash Mob Funeral with Another One Bites the Dust. Nick, would you like to stake a claim or hear the paragraph?
Ooh, I'm going to say that one's true.
Okay, Nick claims true. K-Ball, do you want to guess or?
It's too good. I'm also going to say true.
True. And Chris, do you want to say true, false, or do you want to hear the paragraph?
Yeah, I'm going to go true.
True. Dancers Flash Mob Funeral with Another One Bites the Dust. That is true.
Woo.
Congratulations.
With win-win-win, we all win.
Another one bites the dust. Another one bites the dust. Ooh, ooh.
You guys all win on that one. A dance troupe flash mobbed a funeral with a performance of Queen's Another One Bites the Dust at the request of a woman who wanted her send-off to be memorable, but not sad. So that actually happened. Congratulations. Everybody has 2 points. I'm going to keep a running tally this time so that I do not do what I did last time. All right. Headline number 2. Roomba testers feel misled after intimate images ended up on Facebook. I'll read it one more time. Roomba testers feel misled after intimate images ended up on Facebook. K-Ball, we go to you first.
I love it.
True, false, or hear more?
I love it, but I think it's false.
K-Ball goes in with the false. Chris, we turn to you.
It's true.
Chris says true. And Nick.
I also think this one is true.
So we will not all win this round. Somebody will lose, and the loser of this round is K-Ball.
Yes!
That actually happened. An MIT Technology Review investigation recently revealed how images of a minor and a tester on the toilet ended up on social media. iRobot said it had consent to collect this kind of data from inside homes, but participants say otherwise.
Wow.
That's kind of a quintessential story for 2023, isn't it? Like data privacy breach, Facebook's involved.
This reinforces actually, and I should have gone true, obviously, but this reinforces the regex that I have in my brain. Anytime someone says smart blah, so in this case, it's like smart vacuum, I substitute smart for surveillance. So
Oh,
Roomba, the surveillance vacuum.
I like that, K-Ball.
You know, Amazon has that drone coming out this year. I think this year.
Who does?
Amazon or Nest. They have a drone that will patrol your house. It'll fly around your house with a camera, patrolling it when you're not there. So these stories are only going to increase.
No, it's Amazon. It's Ring.
Or is it Ring? Sorry.
It's Ring, not Nest.
Oh, is it Ring?
Yeah, Nest is the Google.
Yeah, Nest is Google.
So Ring is owned by Google?
Ring is Amazon. Nest is Google.
Sorry. I got that wrong. You're right.
Amazon Ring. Okay. And so it flies around your house when you're not there?
Theoretically.
When you're there, it just chills.
Oh, it's finally available, according to The Verge. So for only $250.
So that's kind of cool. It's like having a patrol, like an armed patrol, only it's an Amazon device.
Before you know it, they're going to arm it.
Yeah, no doubt.
Take out your house invader remotely. Oops. Someone came home early.
After 2 rounds, Nick and Chris are tied in first place with 4 points. K-Ball trailing with 2 points. We now turn to round 3. The headline is Microsoft Combat Goggles score as Congress says yes to buying more. I'll read it one more time. Microsoft Combat Goggles score as Congress says yes to buying more. Chris, you're up first. You can call true or false, or you can wait for the paragraph.
I'm going to wait for the paragraph.
Okay, Chris is going to wait. Nick.
Doesn't sound real. I'm going to say that it's a lie.
Nick is calling false. K-Ball?
I'm going to call false. I think it's not Microsoft, but I suspect that the combat goggles thing is going to be
Okay.
accurate, but we'll see. I'll just call it a lie.
So, Chris, you are now on the hook for 1 point. Here's your extra information. Microsoft Corp will be getting more orders for its combat goggles soon after Congress accepts the U.S. Army's request for $400 million to buy as many as 6,900 of them this fiscal year.
Yeah, I'm going to go false.
So we have 3 falses, but Chris waited for the paragraph. Is that correct? And the winner of this round is...
With win-win-win, we all win.
You all win. K-Ball was correct. He was also incorrect. It was Microsoft. The difference is that I flipped the bit. Microsoft actually did not get approved. The combat goggles falter as Congress says no to buying more this year. So Congress actually did not approve this contract.
But Microsoft legit sells combat goggles. Interesting.
Yes, they do.
Wow.
So Nick gets 2 points, and K-Ball gets 2 points, and Chris gets 1. So after 3 rounds, we have Nick in the lead with 6, Chris in second with 5, and K-Ball in third with 4. It's a tight race. We now move to round 4. There's 5 rounds, by the way, so this is the 4th of 5. Adobe closed out 2022 and celebrated 40 years with an employee-only Katy Perry concert. Are we back around to K-Ball going first, or who's going first this time?
This is the 4th round. I think it's Nick.
Okay, back to Nick. Nick, you want to hear it again, or are you ready to guess?
I got some breathing room. I'll wait for the paragraph.
Okay, Nick's going to wait. K-Ball?
Can I hear the headline again?
Adobe closed out 2022 and celebrated 40 years with an employee-only Katy Perry concert. What's your thoughts right now? What are you thinking?
So, on the one hand, we have generally a bad tech environment. You know, people are cutting back. There's a zeitgeist of cutting back. This sounds like not generally what's going on. On the other hand, Adobe just splurged shiitake tons of money for Figma, and so is clearly doing okay, at least along some dimensions, for cash. I'm still going to go false. I think the environment is too stingy across the board, and contagion is a thing. Also, Katy Perry? Really? If they had it, it's going to be someone else.
Okay. So Nick's waiting. K-Ball false. Chris, what do you think? Does the K-Ball convince you of a false?
So this is the last round?
This is the 4th of 5, so there's one more round after this.
Well, that makes things more complicated. Yeah, I'm going to go false, though. I'm going to go false.
Okay, so we have 2 falses registered, and we also have Nick waiting to hear this paragraph. Despite economic headwinds, Adobe went big on its 2022 holiday party. The event attendees shot hoops in an arcade, received spray-on temporary tattoos, and grabbed drinks and food from a variety of vendors. The stage then transformed into a mushroom-filled fantasy land, and out walked the night's surprise headliner, Katy Perry.
Oh. That's got to be false. Food trucks and then Katy Perry is like what I heard.
Mushroom-filled fantasy land.
Mushroom-filled fantasy land is what I heard.
Well, the truth is stranger than fiction, because with this one, you all lose. This actually happened. It is true.
Holy smokes.
Oh, man.
Tacos, sliders, dumplings.
You're really in a fig jam with that one.
It was a 90-minute concert with Katy Perry on a mushroom-filled fantasy land. And there's pictures and videos on the internet if you want to go look for them. Okay, so in round 4, nobody scores. You're all wrong. So the scores remain the same. Nick in first with 6, then Chris with 5, K-Ball with 4. That brings us to our final round. K-Ball, you're running out of time to pull out a victory. Our 5th headline and final is Boston Dynamics in talks with OpenAI to bring GPT-powered tech to their humanoid robots.
Oh, that's delightful. I'm going to say yes because it's the zeitgeist of the moment.
Okay, K-Ball with a true. Chris, what do you think?
I have to go. Nick can't go before me.
You have to go. You can wait. You're 1 point behind Nick, so if you wait and get it right and he gets it wrong, you'll tie him.
Yeah, I don't want to tie him.
But if you want 2 points, you have to guess now.
Okay, well, I'll go. And K-Ball did. What did K-Ball do?
I said true, even though this also sounds like something that...
Okay, I'm going to go false.
Okay, he's just playing the game now. He's going opposite K-Ball, which leads Nick. So, Nick, if you get this right, you win. If you get it wrong and Chris gets it right, he wins. He's already on board with false.
Yeah.
You could go strategy-wise. If you say false, then the worst you can do is tie.
You said false, right?
K-Ball's in on true.
I said true.
You said true. See, if my only goal is defeating you, then I should go with you so that if you win, I win.
That's true. If your only goal is defeating me, you should go with me. And if your goal is
Why would you make that your only goal?
optimize your chance for first place, you should go the other way.
Yeah, I don't know. I just clinged onto that as my goal.
I see.
A worthwhile goal.
Yeah.
Beating K-Ball, always worthwhile. I would also try to beat Chris if I were you, but that's just me.
Okay. So is that telling me to go with false to...
You can clearly not choose the wine in front of me.
I think your best strategy is to be correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Can you read it one more time? I forgot what we're even talking about.
Boston Dynamics is in talks with OpenAI to bring GPT-powered tech to their humanoid robots.
I'm going to go with false. Just thinking, like, not trying to gamify this. Do they even have humanoid robots?
Boston Dynamics?
Oh, yeah. They have videos of them dancing and doing all sorts of...
They do.
Yeah, they're the ones with the dancing robots. They have the dog. They
They're
have...
super creepy.
Yeah.
They do. Okay.
You sure you don't want to pick the other one, Nick? You sure you don't want to pick true?
I'm going to go with false.
False. The blurb is HeadLIES, the world's most advanced humanoid robot, may soon gain more human-like communication abilities. Their potential partnership with OpenAI would be a major step forward in the field of robotics, as it could open up new possibilities for robots in industries such as healthcare, hospitality, and retail. That paragraph was 100% written by me when I made up this story, because it is not true. It is false.
This is not my day. Nick, you have succeeded in defeating K-Ball.
I wasn't trying.
So Nick and Chris both score 2. K-Ball scores 0. And a runaway victory. Actually, a runaway losery by K-Ball. The other two are pretty close. Nick with 8. Chris with 7. K-Ball with
4.
4. Embarrassing.
Terrible.
So our big winner for today is Nick. Congratulations, Nick. And Chris, a fine showing for your first time. This wasn't so bad, right?
No, that wasn't so bad.
There we go.
I should probably be a little less cautious, though.
Yeah, that 1 point killed you.
Yeah.
I need to think of a new way of designing the game so that you guys want to hear the paragraphs, because I really put the most I put the most work in on the paragraphs. The headlines are easy. But that's on me.
Well, I mean, you could just read the paragraphs,
Just require it.
like, after we choose, even if we all choose before you read it.
That's what I just did.
Yeah. What you just did, essentially.
Or just take away all the work and have GPT.
I actually did ask GPT to come up with some fake ones, and they were terrible. I mean, they were just...
Really?
Yeah. It was all like, big company X launches product Y, and product Y is like a rover or a man on Mars, or they're just completely unbelievable. I was like, be more believable, and then they were not. And I was like, all right, I'm done with you.
So on the topic of using those blurbs, what if you always read it before you told the answer, and we got 2 times we could swap our answer out of the 5? So like we would place our bets.
I see.
Actually, yeah, instead of having the 2 and 1, you're always betting after the headline, but you can change your mind twice.
I like that mechanic. Very good. All right. After that excellently thought out game of headlines, it's now time for pro tip time.
Pro tip time. Why? Why is that still a thing?
Oh, it's delightful, Nick.
Because it's spectacular. Pro tip time. This is where we share our pro tips. They can be useful. They could be silly. They can be whatever we like, as long as they are professionally tips. Nick, got any pro tips?
I do. Maybe I have 2. I don't know. My main one that I put down was there's probably an LSP for it, or there's probably a language server for it. Over the 2 weeks that I had off over the holidays, I completely rewrote 1,100 lines of my dot files and kind of redid everything that I'm doing. And as part of that, I switched from like the LSP installer plugin over to one called Mason. And it gives you a list of like all of the LSPs that it knows about, and linters and formatters and all of that. But it's just like a plugin that maintains all of those for you. And these LSPs are theoretically editor agnostic. So they should work in other editors that support language servers, which is like VS Code and other ones, if there are other ones. And just going through the list, there are some amazing plugins for the LSP for like different languages and for different everything. So like one in particular that I was having fun with was installing one for Markdown and installing two for Markdown specifically. One's called Veil and the other one is called Proslint. And they just yell at you in LSP form for writing terribly, which is exactly what they're doing.
So wait. Hold on. Step back.
Yeah.
Define LSP and LSP form.
Okay. LSP, Language Server Protocol. It's what like TSC or TypeScript uses, right? To tell you you're trying to use that as a number, but you actually passed a string, things like that. And the LSP form can vary based on your editor and how you're using it. But for myself in NeoVim, it puts virtual text to the right of the line that tells me exactly like you're doing this wrong, or that's a number, or that's undefined and you didn't check for that to be undefined. So that's what I mean by LSP form, I suppose. And so this is like going through, and I just opened up like one of my very few blog posts from my website in it. And it's just kind of funny, like the tips that it gives me about my horrible writing. It tells me a lot that for one of them specifically, I'm talking about a video that I did at a meetup called OMG or Omaha Maker Group, but it tells me that OMG is chat speak. Write it out. So that's like one tip that it gives me. Another one is like, it tells me that I'm using over 30 ppm. I don't actually know yet what ppm means, but it basically boils down to I'm using too many. It says more than 30 ppm of exclamations. Keep them under control. So I'm being too excited in my writing. So I should use less exclamation points. I just think it's funny that these tools exist.
Parts per million?
Yeah, I don't know.
Paragraphs per.
I definitely don't have a million characters.
So is that coming out of something called Proslint?
It is. And so, yeah, it's a linter / LSP. I mean, it's not an LSP. It's a linter in that case. But I'm thinking more in terms of like these plugins that theoretically are language or editor agnostic at least. And so it's just really cool being able to play with them and see what they give you. So my pro tip is go explore what LSPs you can install to yell at you more because you're not being yelled at enough by your tools.
I like it. LSPs everywhere. K-Ball, how about you?
Yeah, mine is, as is my want, a human thing, not a technical thing. But since we're in January, everybody's focusing on New Year's resolutions and goals for the year and things like that. And I want to share the pro tip that, at least for me, it works a lot better to focus on habits rather than goals. So instead of saying, I want to write 12 blog posts this year, I'm going to develop a habit of, I'm going to write every day. I'm going to focus on 500 words every day or something like that, but the goal is the habit of what I'm doing there. Or similarly for fitness, I think we've talked about this before, but it's not like I'm going to deadlift 300 pounds. It's, I'm going to work out 3 or 4 times a week and build a habit there. So that is my pro tip. And there's some thinking behind this, right? So the thing with a goal, especially if you do like the sexy thing is, we're going to make a SMART goal and we're going to have it be specific and measurable and all these different things and time bound. But the problem is if you do that, what happens if you don't hit your goal, right? So like, I was very specific. I'm going to do this. I can measure it. I know how I'm measuring it and I'm going to do it by this time. And that time has passed and my specific measurement has not happened. What is my incentive to keep going and start again? But in the real world, like it's going to be a lot better if you keep going and you accomplish that a week or 2 later, right? And if you focused instead of like, what am I specifically doing? Whatever you're saying, I'm going to build a habit of working towards this direction. You're going to get there. And that's what's going to keep you going and moving in the right direction far more than your SMART goal.
Your surveillance goal? Sorry, I'm just applying your regex.
Exactly. Don't create surveillance goals.
Very cool. I have a pro tip. This is not out of my head. This comes from the brain of Scott Antipa, who's a programmer in San Francisco. He says you can store your app's entire state in the URL. He's certainly not the only one who's done this, but he lays it out very nicely. And I will just read what he had to say about that. He says that he's building this flowchart editor that runs in the browser, and he wanted a way for people to use it without having to sign in or store any data on his servers. He wanted to give them control over their data and to be able to store it locally to open and edit later, and also make it easy to share with other people, just by copying the URL and sharing it as a link. So he decided to encode the entire application state as base64 and then put it in the hash mark of the URL. I think it's called the fragment identifier. And so he has it's super easy to do. He has laid out how you do this. You basically just take the JSON. If you have all your app state in JSON, you just stringify that. Then you run some sort of compression on it so you can fit more data into the URL. Of course, URLs do have a max length, and I'm not sure how much data you can fit in before you hit that. But there's some compression you can run on it. Then you base64 encode it, and then you just push that onto the URL. And then later on, when you need it, you decode it, you uncompress it, you parse it back into JSON, and you apply it into your application state. And so that's a cool way of having persistent storage that's persisted not in a cookie on a server-side database or not in local storage where it's stuck in that browser session. It's stored in the URL, which is, I think, kind of cool. There's other people that do this. He mentions Mermaid.js. I'm not sure if you guys have seen Mermaid.live. It's a very cool diagramming tool inside of Markdown that GitHub supports now. They do it. So people do this, and it seems like it works. And so it's something that you can do. And I really like the side effect of having no sign-in, no local storage, copy and paste a URL, and you can just like refresh and rehydrate application state just using that. So check it out. I'll link to that in the show notes, his blog post, how to store your app's entire state in the URL. So that's my pro tip. Chris, did you think of one?
Yeah, so I don't think I've mentioned this, but I may have mentioned it before. It's a thing called Graphite. It's like an app. It's like a SaaS and a CLI, and it integrates with GitHub. Graphite.dev is the site. Anyway, so what this thing does is it builds this metadata on top of Git, and it helps you do stacked pull requests. And I've been using the heck out of it. So I don't know what it is about the way I work. Maybe I'm just doing something that I shouldn't be doing. But I will make a pull request, and then I'll be like, okay, I need to work on this other thing now, and I need the stuff that was from my pull request. And so I could either add all my new junk to that original pull request, or I can make a new one targeting the first pull request. And so that's what this thing helps you do. It creates a stack of pull requests. So part of their dashboard thing is, because if one of these pull requests in the stack gets merged, what it'll do is it'll automatically like restack everything and change the targets and rebase the merged PR onto the one it was targeting. And so it does all this stuff automatically, and then in their dashboard they have a tool to help you review this code, because it's not so easy to do in the GitHub UI, because if you add any sort of commit to the PR, well, there it is, and it's all mixed in to the list of files in your PR in GitHub. But what their like review interface does is it splits it up by stack, and so it knows like which PR what code came from, and a reviewer can easily only review the stuff that was in one particular PR, even if it's been merged back on the original one. And so this is probably really difficult to explain, and I hope they do okay, because they're just like a startup making this thing, because again, it's pretty technical, and it's really hard to explain, but it's really cool to use, and I would suggest check it out if you've ever been in a situation where you're like, oh, I have this work that's in progress, but then I have this other like tangential thing that I need to get done based on that work. And of course, if you use GitHub too, but it's been really helpful. It does all this automatic rebasing and, pulling changes down and restacking everything automatically. And so there's not a whole lot of, you don't have to think too hard about managing the stack of pull requests and branches. It's cool. Graphite.dev.
I immediately signed up. This looks awesome.
It does look cool.
Very cool. Thanks for your pro tips. So in review, there's an LSP for that. Focus on habits, store stuff in the URL, and check out graphite.dev. All right, that is our show for today. Nick, K-Ball, Chris, thanks so much for partying with me today. It was lots of fun. Always happy. Always a good day when K-Ball loses at HeadLIES. So we're happy over here. Just kidding, K-Ball. I love you. And that's it. That's JS Party. I'm Jerod. Final words. I'll give you guys a final word. What do you got?
Bye.
TypeScript.
GSub smart/surveillance. Go.
You heard it here last. All right. That's our show. Talk to you next time. If Chris's pro tip on graphite has you intrigued, we did an entire episode of the changelog on it last year. Find it in the feed. It's called Stacked Diffs for Fast Moving Code Review. I'll also link it to the outro chapter for you. Changelog++ members, stick around for a 10-minute bonus on the web monetization API, cryptocurrencies, and Chrome's control of the web. If you aren't on the ++ bandwagon, hop on now at changelog.com/++. Directly support our work, make the ads disappear, and get extended episodes like this one. Once again, that's changelog.com/++. Thanks once again to our partners Fastly and Fly for helping us bring JS Party to you. Check them out at fastly.com and fly.io. And to our mysterious friend Breakmaster Cylinder for supplying us with the best beats in the business. Next up on the pod, we're shipping a special Tuesday episode. Why? Because it's all about Astro 2.0, which also drops next Tuesday. Stay tuned for that. It's a good one, and we'll have it ready for you next week.